Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Crypto with Chris. We've had some excitement over the last few days. I'm seeing some bullish things. I'm seeing some bearish things. I figured I'd use this show, just as a way to dig through it and think out loud and look at what I'm seeing. But before we get into that, all the reminder stuff, follow my Twitch channel, follow my YouTube, follow my Telegram. You have to be a follower on my Twitch in order to comment. So follow me and comment, and then all my basically after this, all my shows get uploaded to YouTube because that's where they're stored permanently. So watch them on YouTube. Anyway, all right, what do we got here? So let's talk about the bullish first. The monthly is interesting. The 10-month in particular is interesting because right now it's holding actually as pretty strong support, which I was a little surprised to see as I was poking through earlier today. It held it here. Yeah, we had a good wick below it, but it closed right pretty much at it, and since it's gone up from there. So this is a good sign overall. I was a little surprised to see that, honestly. I figured, because there's a lot more stuff that I'm going to get into here in a minute that looks a lot more ominous. But in a general sense, I think this is good to see. I think that I think the fact that this 10-month is trending upwards and is so far holding support is positive. And then I think if we look at things on like a 60-day cycle perspective too. Granted, it's a little bit ugly here at the moment, but we set a new cycle high. We were sitting there at day 7 for the longest time, and I was sure that basically it was just going to kind of peter out and, bleed out from there. But, sure enough, we came along and we poked a new high on day 41. Granted, it's showing that it's being resisted here by the bull, God, I can't talk today. By the bull market support band. Yeah. But still, nevertheless, we set a new cycle high. We poked through, and that's significant. Now, what do I think is going to happen here? Well, one thing to keep in mind is it's basically this new high has flipped this cycle structure from a left translated cycle to a right translated cycle. And generally, a right translated cycle is a bullish thing. It says that we've spent more days going up than we have going down. Now, granted, this one is kind of an anomaly because actually, let me get this out of the way. That's not necessarily the case here. This is a pretty ugly, wonky, just weird, atypical cycle. Even setting, the day 7 high was still really wonky because basically all we've done is gone sideways here. So yeah, in terms of where this is going to end, I don't know. So in theory, we've got 20 more days left in this cycle, on average. I mean, sure, they can vary quite a bit, anywhere from we got 69 here, we got 52 here, we got 45 here. So they're all over the map, particularly in this phase of the 4-year cycle. They tend to jump all around in the first year, in the early halving year. They're way less consistent than they are once you kind of get into a solid uptrend. But nevertheless, we're going to look for a day 60 cycle low. And so does that mean now that it's maybe comes down to here and just ends sideways again, which I think would be a pretty strong signal, which would be a pretty good bullish signal? Or does it actually come down and set a lower low? That's really what I'm going to be looking for. I don't know what's going to happen. I've got a few other charts here that I'm going to dig into that'll kind of give me some more insight. But in terms of a cycle, I did want to point that out because that was a significant update. And also, since I think the last show, I can't remember, the ETFs were like officially delayed. So I've moved, I have it on the other chart. I've moved the deadline out to, it's like now mid-January, I think. So there's not a lot holding Bitcoin up. Yeah, we had this rally. Well, here, let's just go to this other chart. So now we're looking at it on the weekly here. And yeah, we rallied back up into the bull market support band and actually pushed quite a bit higher than it. We've wicked quite a bit higher than it. And now we're right back down kind of in the thick of it and actively going down as we speak. It's been kind of a wild day. I was really not expecting to see, on a Sunday evening, this massive pump out of here. And I set an alert last night before I went to bed at this peak just to see if, it would, well, to have it alert me if it broke the plane of the current cycle high. And sure enough, I woke up and it had pumped way up into here. Now, one thing to notice with this on the daily is pumping up into here is it's getting up into this range here, where there's, some downside wicks. There's some resistance. It's actually pumping up into a zone of resistance. And in fact, if we pull up like a visual range volume profile too, that's exactly what this is showing here. And I mean, that makes total sense. So it's, there's a bunch of activity here that it's got to get through. And so I wasn't surprised at all to see it get resisted here, for a number of reasons, which I'll get into, but that just being one of them for sure. So yeah, another thing too, now we've got printing. Well, earlier when it was up in the green, it was just a 1. It had like a one divergence. It was showing. Now that we've poked back down and we've actually reversed on the day, and we're continuing to reverse, it's now printing a three divergence flag, and it's printing a sell signal. And not to mention, it's a regular divergence and not a hidden divergence like some of these more faded indicators here. So now we've basically got the same thing. We've got the same thing right here that we had right here, in terms of the strength of the signal. The sell signal, regular divergence. Granted, that was a 4 and not a 3, but still, this was the last time something like this printed, and now we've got it printed here. So I think that's pretty significant. I think too, it's important to keep in mind that nothing has really changed, in terms of the macro picture. Liquidity is still trending downwards. The dollar index is actually still continuing to punch upwards, which is showing a ton of strength, which I'm actually pretty surprised. In fact, it basically, engulfed all of this situation here that it had going on Thursday and Friday of last week. It just kind of blew right by it, set a new higher high, and isn't looking back. Meanwhile, liquidity has continued down. Meanwhile, on the RSI, it's poked right back up into overbought. And it's just, not really showing any signs of slowing down. So I kind of wasn't surprised when Bitcoin was way up here earlier today. I just couldn't make any sense of it. It was just, there was nothing that was really supporting this other than just, kind of some hype, maybe surrounding Uptober, the notion of Uptober. And then, maybe a few liquidations, some liquidation cascades, some short squeezes basically that push this up, artificially. But like, if you look at everything else, I mean, well, even Bitcoin now is, it's down into the red, but Ethereum had ETF, like futures ETF launches today. And look at it, it's down, 4.25%. I mean, everything is down, and everything is down even worse against Bitcoin, except for, well, this Unibot, but that's not anything. But just, yeah, some of my other charts, my Bitcoin charts, well, let's just see. Let's look at crypto Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, outside of a few rando little things, it's basically just a sea of red against Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash, that's funny. I don't get people. What's going on over here? Anyway, so yeah, really my base thought here is there's nothing driving this other than hype. I mean, yes, it's a good sign. It's a show of strength. There's a couple of things here that are shows of strength. One, we never set a lower low here. We held this level. Yeah, we wicked down here for a minute, but it immediately reversed, and then it's just kind of held support on this level, and then it's pushing upwards. That's great. That I want to see that, particularly against the larger macro backdrop, particularly against looking at the other, stock markets. Like, that's what you want to see. Let's change this. But at the same time, ultimately Bitcoin is going to be impacted by things like liquidity, and liquidity is down, and it's continuing to go down. Bond yields are continuing to go up. The dollar is continuing to go up. Like, the macro picture today is worse than it was, on Friday. And so what is this? Why? This doesn't mean anything. This doesn't make any sense. Really, I feel like this is more just reflexive than anything. I feel like this is just a reversal back up into a pump back into the bull market support band, and then a subsequent rejection, and that happens. You know, like if we go back and look, I got a cleaner chart here. I think no, this one. So this line is basically, well, here, let me just kind of, I think I had part of it hidden. So yeah, a pump back up into the bull market support band, just like, you know, after it crosses down. That happens a lot when it crosses down below, but I want to focus mainly, like I've been doing, on similar times back in, you know, previous cycles. This is sort of the same time frame back in 2019. You know, we closed down below it, came back up, actually wicked above it fairly good on the weekly, and then continued to go down and set a lower low. And I see a lot of similarity right here. Granted, it's not quite as drastic, but this was a lot more overbought and a little bit more overextended. But very similar situation here. I still don't know about the 50% correction, but nevertheless, in terms of, like, you know, this type of behavior, it's almost like verbatim. Like if you look at it, yes, it's slightly smaller, but sideways, 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 break down below, sideways, pump up, and then rejection. You know, sideways, sideways, break down below, sideways, pump up. So far, a rejection. Let's go back and look at 2015. I think it's going to be a bit different, but I mean, yeah, this one's kind of tricky. So we had this breakdown here. It did actually come back up and get rejected off of it, but it didn't really come back down and set a lower low. Nevertheless, it got rejected off of it and stayed below it for some time, for you know, 6 or 8 weeks, something like that. So kind of like I touched on, I think, in my last video, really what I'm going to be looking for. Well, one, it has, like, if we zoom in a little bit on the daily, you can see it's ever so slightly shifted this bull market support band back upwards to the upside. We've got a little bit of an upswing here, a little bit of an upswing here. But that's not really anything either. Ultimately, what I'm going to be looking for is this bottom, this green level, coming up and crossing back over the top of this red one. I think that's going to be a far stronger indicator than the level itself just flipping back upwards. Because, I mean, it even did that here. Like, if you look, it actually did that briefly here too. It came back up, touched it. You can see briefly it flipped the level back upwards to the upside, you know, on the push, on the breakout, and then again, it rolled back over. So my point here isn't that just because it did it before, that means it's automatically going to happen again. My point here is more just don't get too excited that this is a breakout, because as we've seen in the past, it doesn't mean anything. It can totally just mean that it's, you know, retesting the level that it broke down through, which is very common when things break through levels. They come back and retest them, and then they continue their new trend. And so you see that all the time on horizontal levels. You see that all the time on vertical trend lines. Same thing with these moving averages. It's very, very possible and very normal that this could just get rejected here and continue downwards. So that's my point there. That's all I'm saying with that. A few other things I wanted to, what else we got here? So dominance is kind of interesting. I've been kind of looking at that too. And one thing that's interesting is, well, let's see here. Yeah. Bitcoin dominance has continued to push by quite a bit. It actually, you know, came down, found support on its bull market support band on the weekly, and has just since, you know, pumped basically for 7 weeks in a row now and looking very strong. And so meanwhile, ETH, again, I don't know what's going on with ETH. With the ETFs launching, I would have figured that ETH would actually be doing pretty good today, but it's not. It's like everybody's dumping all their alts and back into Bitcoin. Although if you look at total market cap is actually down. So, and it actually came back up, and it didn't do nearly as well in terms of the bull market support band. It kind of got rejected even earlier. Didn't form, I mean, it did form a new higher high, but it didn't extend up as much, and it was in the red a lot more and a lot quicker. So, this isn't new money coming into crypto, clearly. This is, money coming out of alts and into Bitcoin, and then, coming out altogether, basically. So this isn't a good look, honestly. I mean, really, if you think about it, it's like, yeah, we got the 10-month EMA or SMA, but like, I don't know. I'm just seeing this as kind of a fluky anomaly, kind of fluke thing. I just don't see, there's nothing really driving this. There's not a lot of, market sentiment. There's not a lot of macro fundamental. There's not a lot of anything. If we were seeing, if I had seen a big reversal here in this liquidity, and liquidity was pumping, and the dollar was going down, and all the other markets were going up too, then I would be like, yeah, we're onto something. But like, Monday or Friday stocks were down. Today's stocks are down. I mean, the NASDAQ it's practically break even. We're just not seeing any kind of like a fundamental macro shift that sort of is coinciding with what's going on here with Bitcoin. So, let's look at USD. I mean, yeah, it's mostly just everything is down outside of a couple of just rando wacko things. I don't know what's going on over at Acropolis. Yeah, that's my immediate watch list, and that's pretty ugly. I mean, everything is in the red. So I wasn't actually surprised to see this. I was as it was up here. I was thinking to myself, God, I just bet that it closes not necessarily in the red, but it closes below this level here, the top of this bull market support band. I just knew that was likely going to be what was going to ultimately dictate what's going on right now. And so far so good. I mean, in terms of that, yeah. I don't know. In terms of where it's going to go from here, I'm not going to make any predictions. I still think my bias is to the downside, but really until we close below this level here that I've pointed out, this sort of weekly cycle invalidation level, I'm kind of just staying put. I'm not buying or selling or doing anything. I'm just kind of going to let this play out and ride. A couple other interesting, just random tidbits that I've noticed. Let's look at, what was it? This one? Yeah. So also the death cross, similar to how it's come back up and retested the bull market support band here. It's basically kind of done the same thing with the death cross. I mean, which is not surprising. It's basically come up and retested the death cross moving average, the 200-day moving average, and so far has just been rejected by it. So also very common to see. Both the support band and the death cross, you see these retests. Actually, we can kind of go back and look at this in the previous cycle and see what that looked like. So we had the death cross here. I mean, yeah, kind of. So we had the death cross here. It was a little bit different scenario because price was already sort of trading below it, and then it, rallied right at it, and then came down, kind of came back up, retested it briefly, and then continued lower. Different scenario for sure, but nevertheless, it ultimately resulted in, you know, a 26% correction from the point of the death cross here. So not even counting any of this stuff up here, but just right from where it was at the point of the death cross, it still came down 26% from there. And that was kind of before any of this COVID stuff. I mean, yeah, it rallied back up out of here. And then of course it had this Black Swan event. So this wasn't even coming into play yet. This was not even January. This was pre-halving year still that it did this. So, in fact, it started in October, ironically enough, you know, October, we had the death cross. And it was the start of a 26% correction. So, I guess that's the other thing too, this October thing. I mean, yeah, I know it's only just sort of whatever, a meme, if you want to call it that. But like every October is different. Every October has its own, I think I was looking at it here. I had them arrowed out on a chart yesterday, but I think I deleted them all. But like, if you go back and look, I mean, keep in mind, you know, there's lots of things going on at different points of the cycle. So yeah, we had this other October here that I was laughing at last week that turned out to be a green month, in a larger downtrend. And that's kind of wacky, but also, you know, crypto stocks, everything, they don't just go one direction. They're always going to have a little bit of relief here and there. So this is almost random to me, if anything. And then if you come back to here, this October, this is the start of like the final sort of blow off bull rally. So of course that's going to be green. And then come back to here. This was kind of the second peak. Of course that's going to be green. And then I think, what was it here? Yeah, of course, same thing, blow off top. Also here, same thing. Start of the final rally, same thing as that other cycle. So, and then there's plenty of Octobers that are in the middle of, you know, year-long bear markets too, like this one here, October red. This one here, was it this one? Yeah, October red. I think we had a green October this time around. Barely, it was flat, but whatever. So I'm just not, you know, I'm not going to go, oh, it's October, that means it's pump time, just because we had something like this here. I think every situation is different. Every market condition is different. Every year is different. The macro conditions in this October are wildly different than they were in this October, and especially wildly different than these two Octobers here. So it's not apples to apples. You can't just go, oh, it's October, that means it's going to pump. And I almost can't help but wonder if, like, you know, that's what we got, was this stupid, like, oh, it's October, everything's going to pump, so buy. And we got, you know, a couple of shorts getting liquidated and squeezed that sort of caused this artificial pump up into here. And then everyone's like, oh, wait a minute, actually nothing is different. Nothing has really actually changed. So oops, you know, and then boom, right here we are, right back down to where we were. So, I mean, of course it's, you know, October 2nd, and who knows how the next month is actually going to play out. But like, you know, I think just keep that in mind. Don't think, oh, it's October, it's automatically going to go up. It's automatically buy now because in a month from now it'll be worth more than it is. That's not a given. That's not a guarantee. That's not anything. That's, you know, yeah. And also I wanted to point out, I don't have it in front of me, but like there was a chart I saw that showed like the average, you know, the average October is a 23% green candle, like over the course of Bitcoin's entire history. But one thing to keep in mind there is at the bottom of that chart is, you know, back in like 2011, I want to say, it went up like 200%. And that's, you know, being included into that average. If you take that average out, if you take that 2011 average out, the average gain is only like 13% then. And yeah, sure, that's still good. That's still better than a down month. But like, don't automatically assume you're going to get a 20+% pump just because it's October. So I think get that out of your head. And honestly, I'm not going to be surprised if we don't have a green month this month. I think that, nothing has really changed. Here's my, did I move? Let me change this to the weekly. So I moved the ETF, potential third ETF approval now. It's now Monday the 15th. There's a one straggler that's like January 7th, I think, that I guess I kind of have to keep on my radar. But the bulk of the applications were actually for the 16th. There's one on the 15th, then there's like 6 or 8 on the 16th. But I put the line here at the 15th. So basically there's nothing really driving Bitcoin right now for the whole rest of the year, for the entire Q4, other than October, which is stupid. So yeah, I mean, now we've got this apathy kind of setting in. I feel like that we've had, well, for the better part of 8 months now, 8 or 9 months, and I mean. Also, is this just going to be a big head and shoulders here? Is this the right shoulder here forming? We got this left shoulder here. We got this head forming here with a little bit higher high. Is this a right shoulder forming here that's ultimately going to puke out, into the end of the year? I mean, there's that too, who knows, but it's something to look at. So I'm seeing more negative than positive still. Despite the 10-month holding right now, and despite setting a higher high on day 41 of the cycle, making it right translated, that's just not enough to go on for me to flip my bias to the upside. I mean, right now all we've done is close below the 20-week and come back up and retested it a couple of times, and that's it. I mean, yes, we technically barely closed above it on the weekly, but then immediately are back below it. So is this just a fake out? It's shaping up to be. I mean, again, granted, it's only Monday, but it's shaping up to be. So who knows though? Maybe it needs to go up a little bit higher to just form that right shoulder. So we shall see. I ditched my trend line here because that got totally invalidated. I ditched my horizontal trend line here. Well, and actually I didn't ditch it, but it's still here. Actually, this will be interesting to see if this level holds support now that it's, closed well above it, and broken out. Or I think if it comes down and closes below this trend line this week, trend line, horizontal level, whatever. If it closes back below this level here, that's going to be really ugly to me, because that mean it will have closed below the bottom side of this bull market support band. It will basically have completely invalidated this breakout. It will have, turned it into a false breakout, and it'll put us right back into this range here. And I honestly will not be terribly shocked if come Thursday on my next video, we're talking about Bitcoin below this level. And if not, then by the end of the weekend, but we'll see. So yeah, right now that's kind of what I'm looking at. Still, this level here is kind of ultimate support. But there's some interesting stuff going on now. Definitely interesting price action for sure. It got my attention. It had me sweating it a little bit here. But when I woke up this morning, I was like, dang, did I kind of screw myself for selling down here? But once I started digging into everything and kind of looking at everything else that was going on, I just wasn't seeing anything that was supporting this, that was, supporting a continuation other than just some flaky derivative stuff and silly price action. So right now, I'm still the same. But we'll see. It's interesting. It's interesting for sure. So, all right. That's it. I guess I'll see you guys on Thursday. So have a good week, and I'll talk to you then.